All right, what's going on, guys? This is Rob, and we are back with the Sonic DC crossover, and Sonic shows Darkseid just how fast he is, and it's amazing. So, quick 10-second catch-up. Darkseid basically arrived here in an attempt to attain the Chaos Emeralds to enhance his powers. Don't fully know why, largely to just seemingly conquer reality. The Justice League followed him to stop him, and Sonic crew have joined the Justice League in order to help. So, here's the cool thing, right? Sonic has never met Darkseid before. He doesn't know what Darkseid is about. Of course, the Flash does. And it's one of the reasons why, with Sonic being so reckless here, the Flash is a lot more cautious. And that's why he tells Sonic, whatever it is that you faced in the past, I promise you, Darkseid is worse. Most villains you can reason with. Darkseid, you cannot. And so between the two of them, they come up with this kind of half-cocked plan, right? That they'll both hit him as hard as they possibly can, they'll grab the Chaos Emerald, and they'll get out of there. They're kind of banking on their speed to be able to overcome Darkseid in this instance, or at least to act so fast that Darkseid doesn't know how to react. Now, this is seemingly the nature of the Chaos Emeralds, because under any other circumstance, this probably wouldn't work. So a great explanation that you guys gave for the Chaos Emerald in the comments of the last video is that Chaos energy is like the Force from Star Wars, and the Emeralds are the way in which that Force is channeled to various people. And so in essence, Darkseid's a Jedi. Not really, but you get the point. And so seemingly the Chaos Emerald amplifies the power he already has. And that's why he's able to overcome both the Flash and Sonic like that. It's kind of amazing, right? He's just like, man, you guys better come strong if you guys are going to come at me like that. Really? That's your idea? Right? And so it's one of these things where his eyes start to light up. And that's where Flash is like, run, because Darkseid fires off the Omega Beams. Now again, Sonic doesn't know anything about this, and for those of you guys who are unfamiliar, Darkseid gains his power from what's called the Omega effect, and the Omega Beams are the optic blasts he of course fires from his eyes. The difference here is that the Omega Beams will constantly follow you. No matter where you go, once they lock on, they will go through whatever they need to go to in order to get to you. If there's someone standing in front of you, they will incinerate that person and keep coming after you. There's only really a couple of exceptions to this. If you're someone like Superman or Doomsday, who is so incredibly powerful that you can withstand the effect of Darkseid's Omega Beams, or if you're someone like Batman, who's so popular, DC can't kill you, so they just time displace you when you get hit with the Omega Beams. That happened in Final Crisis. For those of you guys who don't know. But the important thing is this. They end up coming up with this plan, knowing they can never really escape, and the beams will follow them across the world until Darkseid makes it stop. That Flash goes low, Sonic goes high, and between the two of them, the beams hit each other and cancel each other out. But this was all just a distraction. Nothing more, nothing less. Because what Darkseid does is while they're basically bobbing and weaving and dodging, he opens a boom tube. So as soon as the beams cancel each other out, Darkseid escapes through the boom tube. And that's where, with him having a Chaos Emerald, he's more powerful than anybody here. And so while I wouldn't go so far as to say that, Flash panics, he does point out the fact that Sonic was so slow that he couldn't stop Darkseid, and that the rest of the Justice League kind of have to get a hurry on it, because at this point, Darkseid can start tracking after the various Chaos Emeralds now that he knows what to look for, what signatures to hunt for. Now here's a kicker. It's not a guarantee, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Because when he contacts the rest of the League, Superman and Knuckles haven't found anything. Wonder Woman and Amy, they're still hunting. Batman and Shadow are just brooding. Silver and Green Lantern, they haven't found anything. And when it comes to Cyborg and Tails, they're still trying to create a device that can track the various Chaos Emeralds, but they haven't really had any luck yet. And the reason for that comes by way of a conversation between Darkseid and his henchman Darkseid. Because when Darkseid shows back up here, he tells Darkseid, ready the machine so we can harness the power of this Chaos Emerald. But he also asks, how is the hunt for the other Chaos Emeralds going? And that's where Darkseid gives us this really interesting explanation. He says, it's the nature of their power. It's chaotic, unruly. It's almost as if they're actively trying to hide from the Father Box. Now, here's a question that I have for you guys out there who are Sonic fans. Are the Chaos Emeralds borderline sentient? Can they kind of like think for themselves? They can avoid being detected if they choose to? Again, I'm fairly new to this whole Sonic lore, so I'm looking to you guys to kind of help teach me on some of this stuff. But the other part of this is Darkseid basically says the arrival of the Justice League has complicated things, right? The Justice League knows what Darkseid's capable of. They know how to work around him. They know his strengths and weaknesses, even if no one outside of Superman is equal to the raw power of Darkseid. And even then, if Joshua Williamson's World's Finest is to be believed, not even Superman is close to the power of Darkseid. But however you slice it, Darkseid sends his guys across the world, because at this point, it's much easier to find the Chaos Emeralds if you have hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands of soldiers out there scouring, as opposed to just one guy walking around, right, with his hand on his forehead, searching left and right. And so this switches over to Tails and Cyborg, because with them monitoring Darkseid, what they realize is that with all of Darkseid's forces being sent out there, now they have a way to track them. And so by way of Darkseid's forces, they can track their movements, which in turn will hopefully lead them to the Chaos Emeralds. Now, it's not a perfect plan, and it's not even foolproof. They're basically falling behind. And so trying to hope they can catch up to Darkseid's forces and basically counter them right when they go for the Chaos Emeralds, it's a gamble at best. But the reality is, it's the best option they have. And so Cyborg sends the coordinates of Darkseid's forces to each member of the Justice League and Sonic's crew relative to their location, right? The ones closest to them. But Batman, ever the pragmatist, poses a question, right? He says, we have a plan of action and that's great, but what's our contingency? Darkseid already has mythic arcane power and can gain more. We may not be able to counter that. Now, of course, Superman, ever the hopeful, just kind of says, well, then we'll find the other emeralds and retrieve the one he stole. We will not fail this world. But again, it's more hopeful than reasonable. Something to point out here for all you guys who are Sonic fans out there and aren't really familiar with DC, this isn't a traditional Superman position to take. In fact, the position of Wonder Woman is the one that Superman would normally take, where she says, Batman's right, we need to plan for the worst, even while hoping for the best. What are our options if things get dire? Superman is very, very balanced, right? He's very centered more often than not. And so he's very good at kind of looking at both sides and sort of hedging his bets. So that's really more of a statement that he would make in DC Comics, right? Yes, let's do what we can to make sure we save the day, but in case we don't, let's also make sure that we have a plan. Now, again, it's a way to kind of give everybody on the team a particular role to play. The traditional role of Diana is just go in and start hitting stuff. Not really, but you guys get what I'm saying, right? And so Cyborg chimes in and says, I have an emergency boom tube prepped to return to the Watchtower if things go sideways. So we do have an immediate exit. The problem with this is that when the Justice League followed Darkseid to this world in an attempt to stop whatever scheme he was working on, despite not knowing what it was, what they didn't expect was to show up on a planet full of sentient critters. And so now that they're here, it's not just about stopping Darkseid and basically grabbing Sonic's crew and jumping back to the main DC universe in the Watchtower if things go sideways. Now, they kind of have to figure out what to do with a planet full of sentient animals. They can't just let innocent people die due to being caught in the crossfire. So the situation has become far more dire than it was before. And so again, where Green Lantern asked the question, right, this boom tube idea that you have, Cyborg, is not enough to evacuate the planet. Is there anything better we can do? The response of Superman will rise to the occasion like we always do. And if we need a little extra help, we can put our faith in our new friends. Now, the other part of this could simply be that Superman realizes the dire nature of this situation. He knows how bad it is, and he knows the likelihood of them succeeding isn't really all that high, right? He's playing the role of Iron Man from Secret Wars 2015, where he knew the entire time. But what Superman doesn't want to do is demoralize everybody and say, hey, look, just so you guys know, we probably won't win. So, I mean, we'll do what we can, but Sonic, I got to be honest with you, man, like, all your friendly critters, they're going to die. That's just the way that it goes. It'd be a terrible attitude to have, right? So he may just simply be playing the role of trying to be the positive voice among all the chaos that's happening around there right now. And so at that point, we switch over to this cool little monologue where we're told the battle and hunt for the Chaos Emeralds ignites around the globe. And so what's happening is Darkseid is sending out some of his most formidable foes. He's sending out members of the Fury. Furies. He's sending out Calabac. He's sending out these guys that are wildly capable. I wouldn't go so far as to say that all of these guys are a single match for the Justice League, right? They're like, the Justice League would struggle against the Furies or against Calabac or something like that. But there's certainly some major heavy hitters. It's a big deal. So this kind of illustrates how important all of this is. And not only that, you switch over to Batman and Shadow when they encounter Steppenwolf, and Shadow displays a power that Batman has not seen yet, right? In this instance, Steppenwolf says, the mortal man and the tiny animal wish to challenge Steppenwolf. Very well. I will award your heads along with the gem to my lord Darkseid. And so at that moment, you have Shadow who makes his move against Steppenwolf and uses chaos control. Now, here's something that I had to look up on YouTube because I'm not overly familiar with chaos control. As I understand it, chaos control is an individual's ability to manipulate chaos energy. Different people can do it, but as I understand it, Shadow is more adept at doing it than anybody else. So kind of using our Star Wars reference, sure, all Jedi can manipulate the Force, but not all Jedi are Yoda. I don't know if Shadow would be Yoda, but it sounds like it would be dope if he was. So, you guys get the point that I'm making. The ability to implement chaos control is the ability to stop space and time, in addition to various other abilities that come with manipulating chaos energy. Batman hasn't seen it, and he says, impressive, you move faster than I could perceive. And that's where Shadow says, there's no way you could have. I used chaos control to stop time. And so in that moment, Batman's like, well, then that might be the key to undermining Darkseid. But the problem is that in the midst of this conversation, the entire world starts shaking and almost kind of falling apart at the seams. Because with this device hooked up to the machine in Ragnarok, right, the ship of Darkseid, he's starting to channel this chaos energy. But understand, Darkseid's messing with powers that he doesn't fully understand. And it's one of the other reasons why this crossover is so cool, because Darkseid is a character of the DC multiverse, right? The whole multiverse only has one Darkseid. And so being in and out of all these different universes, they more or less function the same, right? If the main DC universe Superman is 0 on a number chart, then virtually every version of Superman exists between -1 and 1, right? I mean, it's not that much differentiation between his characters. People like Batman, basically the exact same way. So Darkseid is used to dealing with all these different types of power in different types of universes, but they all more or less function the same. In this instance, he's in a whole different multiverse with a whole different level of power that he's never encountered before. Its arrogance run away with itself, because what he says is fascinating. Its legendary power is legitimate. The very essence of space and time is beginning to warp. With just one, I could mutilate this world. With all 7 universes. Now again, we don't necessarily know what the overarching plot of this is as far as Darkseid's motivation, outside of the fact that, number 1, Darkseid's a dick, and number 2, he does what dickheads do, which is this. Showing up in a universe and just trying to destroy it for no other reason than the fact that he can. And so this kind of puts stakes on the whole thing, because Darkseid's intention is to destroy this world and even this universe and the multiverse after attaining the Chaos Emeralds. And so at that moment, Batman, understanding the full totality of what's going on, tells everybody, we have to abandon the hunt for the Chaos Emeralds. This is done. We have to take the fight to Darkseid. The problem is they have no real means of transportation to get to Darkseid directly. Enter Dr. Eggman. And I know a lot of you guys who were Sonic fans were dying for this moment, because I'll be honest with you guys, I didn't know if he was going to be an ally of Darkseid or if he was going to work against Darkseid. The cool thing here is he's working against Darkseid. And it's one of these scenarios of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Because when he appears to Sonic and Flash, of course, the banter between Sonic and Flash is that Sonic reveals Eggman as kind of his arch nemesis, right? But at the same time, Eggman tells him, I'm already here against my better judgment, but a threat of this magnitude necessitates extraordinary measures. I will get you up to that grotesque flying face. You and your costume compatriots will handle the rest. And so Flash asks the question, I mean, look, man, like, if he's your arch nemesis, can we trust this guy? How do we know that he's not working with Darkseid? And so in turn, Sonic says, for the short term, yes, he's on our side. He stands to lose as much as the rest of us. So let's just round everybody up. I mean, at the end of the day, what's it gonna hurt? We're already knee deep, might as well dig a little deeper. And so with the help of Eggman, they get up to Ragnarok, where Darkseid's at. And at that point, it's a mad dash for the machine that Darkseid's using to harness this chaos energy. And so in a lot of ways, it really kind of comes down to Flash, not because of the fact that Barry is somehow more powerful than everybody else, but as you guys know, Barry Allen the Flash moves incredibly fast. Sonic is very fast as well, not as fast as the Flash, but he's fast. The issue here is that Flash is familiar with Darkseid, so he knows what kind of technology Darkseid would use, how these things work. It's stuff from his own universe. And so what he does is, while Sonic serves as a kind of distraction alongside all the other members of the Justice League and Sonic's crew, in an effort to attack Darkseid, the Flash races up to the machine alongside Cyborg in an attempt to shut the machine down. The other part of this is that Shadow confronts Darkseid yet again. Now here's the thing, this may seem reckless, it may seem foolish, and it absolutely is. But if you know about the character of Shadow, despite how he appears and despite how calm he seems, this guy's screaming on the inside. Because remember, the last statement, the last request given to him by Maria, keep the planet safe. So if he fails her, even in death, and it's not something that he can tolerate. What's crazy is that, again, he manipulates chaos control, but Darkseid does the same thing. In fact, seemingly, he negates the chaos control of Shadow. And Shadow can't believe it, right? He's just like, no one nullifies my ability for chaos control. But what Darkseid says, Father Box discovered much about your world, about chaos control. That promise of power and control drew me here. To most mortals, yes, this is impossible, but not to you, for you are the ultimate life form, and not to me, for Darkseid is, and sends everybody flying. This is one thing I gotta say, man. Darkseid, when Darkseid is written right, this guy's lines are almost as good as Dr. Doom. Almost as good as Dr. Doom. Not quite, but almost as good. Darkseid is phenomenal. And so again, at that moment, it kind of comes down to Sonic and Flash. Now, Flash hasn't raced to the machine yet. Instead, this is where the distraction comes in, because Sonic starts using his speed to distract Darkseid. Not really enough to defeat him, but enough to kind of offer some measure of a distraction to all of this. It allows the Flash to race up to the machine. But even then, he fully doesn't comprehend what he's seeing. And he says as much, right? When Cyborg shows up there, he says, any insight to what I'm looking for, Victor, it's like I'm grasping at smoke. And the response of Victor, the dimensional energies are way out of sync. Darkseid was being sloppy, crossing over. The Chaos Emerald fueled engine is not playing by any rules. And so at that point, the machine starts to overload due to the power of the Chaos Emerald. And Darkseid, believing he can control it, bend it to his will, approaches it. But through all of this, Cyborg and Tails are like, I'm reading spikes in chronons, gravitons, and tachyons. We're looking at a total quantum collapse. And that's where Tails says the dimensional engine is destabilizing. Time and space are not going to mean anything in a minute. What we're looking at here is a total collapse of not just this universe, but the multiverse, because everything leads back to zero. And so with everything going on, the Justice League does what they can to stop Darkseid, but Batman seems to be the only sane head that prevails, because he says, Lantern, the assets, Cyborg, the boom tube. And at that point, Sonic and them are encased in a green sphere. And they're like, what are you doing? And Batman's like, putting our faith in you. And they get shot through the boom tube. Right now, they end up in the Justice League's universe, where Mr. Terrific is waiting for them in the Justice League watchtower. Now, it's not them in particular. He was waiting on the Justice League, so he doesn't know how they're there. But once they fill him in on what's going on, they tell him, like, reality's collapsing. They sent us through to protect us. We have to reopen the boom tube, and we have to help them. But the response of Mr. Terrific, I can't. There's no dimensional coordinates to target. Your world is gone. Darkseid, the Justice League, and everyone else is gone. There's nowhere to go back there. With that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end because I'm kind of dying to know, man, where do you go from here? I don't even remotely have an answer to that question, but I'm excited to find out. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Hopefully you enjoyed this video if you did, drop a like, and I will catch you all later. Peace.